The only thing constant in our world is
change.
Boom. Oh my gosh, we are killing it today. Change. So it would also be true that having someone as an A player who is adaptable and flexible is important. I don't think that adaptability and flexibility in how you do something, or, oh, we're just super flexible here, it's no problems. Like, I don't want that surgeon. Like, I want someone who is going to follow the rules, do the right
We'll just
thing.
we'll just get in there and see what's going on. We'll figure it out.
See stuff around, and
yeah,
we'll let you know later.
Welcome back to the Culture Base Podcast. I'm Dustin. He's Blake. We are the Culture Base. We're so excited to be with you today. Episode 91, The Rise of the A Player. We've been hinting at this episode for a long, long time, and it's finally here. I'm sure it won't be the last episode on this topic, but we cannot wait to dive into it with you today. But before we do, I want to remind you that we are here at the Culture Base to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and develop a scalable team to get them there. We would love it if you're listening to this podcast to leave us a 5-star rating or review. Helps get this content out further to those like yourself who can benefit from it. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to hit the like button. That's the thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell. All three of those actions will help keep you informed every time we drop new content like this or little other snippets of wisdom throughout the week. Let's see what else. You can also go to theculturebase.com/strategy to get a free 30-minute strategy session with us, and check out all of our free resources at theculturebase.com/resources. Lastly, you can follow us on social media, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn at The Culture Base. That's BASE. We're all about that particular base. I feel like every time I say that. Megan Trainor would love our company. All right. So let's get into today's episode, Blake. Let's start by kind of setting up the problem. What problem are we trying to solve here with A players? Let's maybe start there, and then we'll get into kind of defining what that terminology is and where it came from.
Yeah. So a lot of times the problem with defining A players is that defining A players. I can ask you who your A players are in any organization, and you'll be like, oh, Ben, John, and Tim, they're my A players. And I'll be like, why? And you'll be like, they're just always here. They're doing this. And you can't, it's very gut check. It's true, but it's still gut check for why you think that. And you don't do a whole lot with it, because a lot of times we just think, like, they are what they are. And we kind of have this, which is a limiting belief, by the way,
right?
A limiting mindset that says they are what they are. They can't change. They can't become something else. And I think the problem is we just don't have an ability to know why they're an A player and what areas they're an A player. And then how do you increase the strength of the A player, and how do you build a B player to be an A player? And all of it is about trying to build a team of A players. And A players love, and we've talked about this before, A players love to work with A players. Championship teams are not made up of C players. Okay, now I'm not saying the best at everything they do. Be careful there. This is not some elitist mentality. This is, do they have the right stuff, and are they willing to build themselves up and grow?
Yeah, we just watched recently, just a few weeks ago when this came out, we watched recently here. I live in the Atlanta area, and the MLB All-Star game came to town, right? All A players, right? These are the best of the best, right? But I love the conversation and the thought process here when you think about going from high school sports to college sports to pro sports, right? The high school sports may be like, oh, you're the best in the town. And the college may be like, oh, you're the kind of the best in the region, right? But by the time you get to, pro sports, you're best in the nation, best in the world. So all of the guys that are on there, even the guys that you're like, man, he only bats 190. What's he doing here? Boo, send him back to the minors. He's still, by the metrics, one of the best in the nation at what he does. So like, I think it's important for us to understand, like, yes, they're all not going to be all stars. I would say that's probably different than an A player, right? But you can have a team full of A players.
100%. 100%. So I would say this A player concept is not a new concept. Okay. We've used this kind of language for a long time. Jack Welch, he was former CEO of GE. And he's always historically known to fire the bottom 10%, no matter what. And he had metrics for what that was. I don't think he really shared those metrics, right? But he knew the bottom 10% performers and would just cut them. And you're like, oh, that sounds so heartless. Maybe not. Like, what was the reason? What was the motivation? Like, did he pull down A players? Jack Welch's mentality was a 20-70-10 mentality. He said, oh, in business, you have 20% A players, 70% B players, and 10% C players. And so you just cut the bottom 10. There wasn't a lot of motivation to make that better. It was just hey, this is a simple calculation I can do.
Yeah.
Assuming I got 20% of this, 70% of this, and 10% of this. The problem is poor B players and C players do drag down A players. And so how are you keeping your A players, and how are you defining them, and how are you doing what you need to do? And by the way, in terminology, I won't even go to D and F players. Like, they just shouldn't be on your team. Like, whenever you figure that out, I'm not going to give standards for what that looks like, because, and I'm going to get a bad rep here, but I don't care. Like, they don't care, in fact. And so there's your identifier of what a D and an F player looks like here. And then you've got so there's Jack Welch. Then you have Brad Smart, I believe, who did top grading. And so he does a lot of hiring in a certain way, and then uses the A to F scale, the very scholastic scale, in hiring in his reference calls and talking through how things work. So again, the concept of A player, F, or A player, B player, C player really comes from just the school mentality. Jim Collins talks about getting the right people on the bus, and that's about A player, like finding the A players need to be on the bus. We had, at my team, our goal last year was to be 70% A player. And this year it's to be 90% A player. We got there last year at 70, and our team's efficiency skyrocketed. It was unreal. And then, as we've been growing, and sometimes that is about, and this is the idea, right? C players, we don't want C players. So does that mean we get rid of C players? Not necessarily. Then it becomes, we're going to give you the information you need, and the training and the coaching and whatever else we can for a certain amount of time. That time part is really important. For a certain amount of time, because we are going to grow you in the company, or it's a go. You need to get out of the company, because that's best for everyone. And I know people are like, no, because the person doesn't have a job anymore. And no, that's not true. We're keeping them from a potential job they could have if they stay with us, right? Yeah. So I think it's really important, and we haven't defined what these things are yet, but it is really important that we understand kind of the why to all of this.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get later in the episode about kind of scratching the surface on what to do with B and C players to get them up to A player status. But let's kind of go back to the beginning here, Blake, and define what is an A player? Where does that terminology come from? How do we define that for our business and culture's sake?
Sure. So I think we've hit where it comes from. It's just in the market. These are the Jack Welch, the Brad Smart. Everybody uses the same terminology. What we decided to do is come up with 10 areas that we think make up an A player. Okay. All of these are not the same weight. Okay. So there are some of these that hold heavier weights than others. And where this came from was, let's sit down and let's research who are the A players and what is consistent about a Michael Jordan, about a Steve Jobs, about when you start figuring out all these A players who our gut says are A players, and we start really researching and understanding what are those key characteristics, key character aspects that we need to understand, and let's dive into it. And so I'm going to go through the first, the 10 of them here pretty quickly. Okay. So I'll be giving very like cliff notes. If you're older than 35, you'll know what I mean there. I'll give the like really quick cliff
Under
notes.
35, it's the Wikipedia.
Yeah, there you go. But at the same time, just know that there is more depth to each of these. We just don't have the margin to dive deeply into it. Okay. So the one that we were like, what really separates a true A player from a B, a C, and so on? And that was the accountability for action. Like, I think A players will look different as we talk about these characteristics, maybe at some level. And this is still a philosophical question we talk about often is, do A players look different from organization to organization? And I think there are some characteristics that I would say, I think these are just, there is not a case where this isn't true. Okay. And so accountable for actions is one of those, especially if you have a team aspect here that we're talking about. And we're talking about culture and team. So if you're like a solopreneur and you're like, well, whatever, it doesn't matter, then yeah, this isn't for you. That's fine. But accountable for actions, that doesn't mean that this person, just, oh yeah, I guess that's my fault. No. It's like an A player who is accountable for their actions, takes responsibility for their work. End of story. They're not looking to throw someone else under the bus. They make a mistake. They own that mistake, and they own it to a point that they make it better, right? The Michael Jordan getting cut. Could he have complained about the coach just doesn't like me and doesn't like this and, this, I'll hear all my problems. He absolutely could have. Did he? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He said, this is on me. I'm going to become the next great thing. And he believed it. That's accountable for actions. Okay. The next one, reliability. Now, I know in today's day and age, we've got stuff where we have start times that are more suggestions, apparently. I think if we're talking about reliability and how much they show up, that is a very C player mentality. I show up on time. Good. That's called permission to play. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say too, asking like what time, like if someone asks like what time are we done here today? Maybe an indicator. Maybe an indicator. Maybe. On a regular basis. Maybe they have a dentist appointment.
So let's say C player shows up. B player is when they're here. Let's say they show up 5 days a week. Of those 5 days, how many are they on? Like, are they I'm on for 2 and really like subpar for 3?
Coasting for 3.
Yeah, exactly. So A players, they're reliable, but they show up as who they are every day of the week. Okay. That's who they are. They are A players who are reliable. The next one is quality of work. So these top 3, the accountable for action, the reliability, and the quality of work, I think these 3 are pretty intrinsically there no matter what. Now, what looks different in quality of work? I think it does look different. I think each organization has to say, here is what quality of work looks like in this, because it's not even just organization, it's position, right? Like, I know that I would not score high in some quality of work areas in other organizations or in other jobs because I just don't connect to certain things. That's okay. I will never be a world-class baseball player. I know that. And I just don't connect to baseball that way. I don't want to put the drive in for something like that. I don't enjoy it. Well, that's going to affect all of those things. So I think that looks different. But quality of work still is like Michael Jordan's quality of work in basketball was very different than baseball. Like he was, I saw Space Jam. You saw it. Like even in Space Jam, they joked about him not being that great in baseball. Like it looks different from different positions, but if you're scoring a person in that position, you do have to take those things into consideration.
Yeah. So, I was going to say too, that the A players, they were talking about just kind of quality of work and just kind of skating by and just kind of doing the bare minimum a lot when we talk about quality of work, right? Maybe we're going to hit this further down too, but A players don't just do the job, right? They help redefine the job, right? They help redefine and reset that bar every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. So I'm going to go through these other ones. This is where I think the order maybe can change a little depending on the needs of the organization. And maybe the pace and what's important to the organization. So I think values start coming into play. However, I don't think it's this one here. I think maybe still kind of stays in some of the top area, and that's taking initiative. So like A players are proactive team members. They don't wait necessarily for instructions. Like they act on opportunities, and what you were just saying right there, they look for those improvements for growth. They look to change or adjust what something is or isn't. Now, taking initiative in this standard, how is that as a brand new surgeon? Okay, well, I don't know. This is where we have to identify what things are important at that one stage, and how they weight. But I still think it's really important to have that in your top 4 or 5.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Problem solving ability. So much of growth in an organization, like when you take on responsibility, you're really taking on problem solving and problem managing. That's really what responsibility is, right? Like most managers aren't the doers of the thing, they're problem solvers of the thing. And so problem solving probably becomes more and more important as you grow. But if you want to be an A player who has the ability to grow, you have to engage in this ability to assess situations, find solutions, and then navigate through changes and challenges without constant guidance. Like that's just one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say too, to the leaders that are listening to this, don't hoard the problem solving, right? Like if you're stifling your team's ability to be problem solvers, then you can't necessarily give them demerits for not being problem solvers. You know what I mean? Like you can't, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you can't be like, you don't have a problem solving problem. Well, I don't have any autonomy to solve any problems.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So just for the leaders out there, like as we're going through these things, I mean, yes, I think this applies to all of these things, but I think leaders tend to hoard the problem solving because that's where they find their value, and they go and they find their identity. But the more that you can open that up and give autonomy to problem solving to everybody on the team, the stronger the team is going to get all together.
So good. So, and I'm taking a risk here. Because when I ask questions that I'm looking for one answer and it gets answered wrong, I'm like, no, that's not it. But here's what it is. And we're live on air. But the only thing constant in our world is
change.
Boom. Oh my gosh, we are killing it today. Change. Yep. So it would also be true that having someone as an A player who is adaptable and flexible is important. I don't think that adaptability and flexibility in how you do something, or, oh, we're just super flexible here, it's no problems. Like, I don't want that surgeon. Like, I want someone who is going to follow the rules, do the right thing.
We'll just get in there and see what's going on. We'll figure it out.
Move some stuff around, and we'll let you know later.
We'll see what's going on when we get in there.
But
I'd rather
the ability to change and adapt to those changes and challenges, because like the surgeon who gets in there and sees something that is wrong, but goes, well, I don't really know what that is, and that's not part of my SOP, so I'm just going to sew them back up. I don't want that either. Like your ability to know how to adjust, how to look, how to change is so invaluable. And so as an A player, we're looking for people. Let me show the opposite, actually. You tell someone, hey, we have this new opportunity. We're going to change this. We're going to adapt to this, and we're going to input this new process. And they go, oh, no, fine. Yeah, no, I'm a team player. They're not. Like, that's not who beta tests this change. Like, you want people who are like, okay. And it doesn't mean they have to be happy. Doesn't mean they have to like, let's go, boss. Like you don't want that, but you want someone who's like, okay, we've been doing it this way. It seems like it's successful, but let's give it a shot. Like what we did to get here made us this successful. Maybe this will make us equally successful.
Yeah. So for the note takers, because note takers are leaders and learners, right? We got accountability for action. We got reliability, quality of work, taking initiative, problem solving ability, adaptability and flexibility. Where are we at now?
Collaboration and teamwork.
Booyah.
So collaboration, teamwork, especially if you have a team that needs to, like, it's going to take a team to grow this thing. If you're a single person with a product, and then maybe this isn't for you, but if you're looking to grow a culture who can grow an organization to the next level, you have to have the ability for people to have collaboration and teamwork, and not ones who say, oh, we're transparent, and then right away are like, we're not transparent. And I couldn't say this around so-and-so. Okay, well then, like, you're missing some candid trust there. You're missing the ability to dive in and have those hard conversations. Good collaboration and teamwork does not mean everyone's smiling, does not mean everyone says, this is a wonderful place to be. And then they're like, you see the edges of their eyes are like breaking at the same time they're smiling. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're looking for, hey, I'm going to have a hard conversation with you, but I love that you're going to hear me, and you're also going to give me a hard conversation back. Okay, that's good collaboration, teamwork. Next one, continuous improvement. This is one that, as we studied A players, we just kept seeing over and over is, man, A players continually improve. They're never satisfied. Like, this is, like, to me, B players are amateurs and A players are professionals. And amateurs practice to something till they get it right. Professionals practice something till they don't get it wrong. And so the idea of continuously improving and pushing and trying new things and adapting and, like, how do I do this? And, well, like, B players would be like, you're already an A player. Why are you doing that? Because the idea of the A player is never finished. It's always improving, right? It's always advancing. It's always transforming. So continuous improvement, so important. The next one is communication skills. A players don't keep it here in their head. They know how to communicate things well. This is one that is, and by the way, I believe all of these are learned. I don't believe any of these are innately, I was born this way. I don't think so. I think all of these are learned principles, because I believe myself to be an A player, and I have sucked at every one of these at one point in time. Just straight up have, and had to grow and had to become better at those areas. And so communication skills, a learned thing, but clear, effective communicators are going to prevent misunderstanding. They're going to ensure smooth operations for the most part. They're going to engage people in the right way. And A players who do that, who work with other A players who do that, love what they do. Okay. I would almost venture to say that the number one reason A players leave organizations is because they don't have other A players. I think it's one of the biggest things. I think it's what pushes people to another grass is greener over there thing when they're truly A players. The last one, number 10, leadership. Okay. I think leadership is not always crucial, but it is one of those things that we see A players look like in sports and nonprofits and for-profits. We see A players leading. And so it's just like, again, I may not put that at the very top, which sounds crazy for a leadership podcast kind of thing, but it really, I think that it's just a thing that we see very correlated with.
It's a differentiator.
Yeah, it just is there. Yeah. So,
yeah. I think with our time today, we might not get as deep as we wanted to, but we do have some future episodes coming up very soon that's going to dive into these things even more. But let's kind of wrap up our time today, like talking about, like, what is a leader who's hearing this for the first time and an A player in business and hearing these 10 different items, these qualifications that make up an A player. What do we do next? What is this leader supposed to do next with this information?
So, we talked last episode about collecting data. Okay. So we didn't just say, hey, like, Jack Welch just said, these people are A players because of their performance. These people are B players. These people are C players. We're now saying we actually think there are 10 categories that make up a good A player. And if that's all we said is, hey, here are the 10 categories, good luck, then we did nothing for you except say, hey, maybe you should figure something out here. So what we do, and we have, we're developing even an app in this right now. And the idea is to have something that helps your ability to have managers score your team. Managers who work directly for or work directly with these team members. So they're going to score, hey, here are the questions that we ask. And it's like one question. How do they score on a 1 to 10 scale on reliability? And then it's going to follow up with other questions so that we make sure we're getting reliable answers on that person. Okay. So we go through each of the categories on that said person as managers. Then your peers are going to score you. And then you're going to score yourself in these areas. Why? Because that data starts to show differentiators, shows where we all agree on certain areas and where there's areas for improvement. Because if I just said, Dustin, you're a B player, man, I need you to step it up. What did I give Dustin? Absolutely freaking nothing. I didn't give him anything. If I said, Dustin, your reliability is awesome. I've noticed your accountability for actions from your peers, from your managers, is scoring like a 6 right now, and you're scoring it as an 8. Can I give you some of the feedback that we've heard and see? I want to see your responses to these things and whether you're willing to dive into it. If it's an A player, they're going to have open ears. They may be defensive. Don't see defensiveness as not an A player. Just they may be defensive because they're like, what? I'm surprised. I'm taken off guard. But then you say, okay, it sounds like there was maybe 1 or 2 incidences that have happened in the past quarter. And by the way, we do these quarterly in the past quarter. And what that looked like was this happened and you quickly threw so-and-so under the bus. Multiple people saw it from that angle. And Dustin might be like, oh my gosh, you know what? I can totally see how that's the case. And that is not, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to take ownership of that. Okay, great. Or they could be like, well, it was because they freaking stupid. And okay, well, now we're starting to learn more about the person. Like, this is good. But doing these kind of things is allowing opportunity for coaching people up or coaching people out. That's the idea here. You want to have a team of A players working together. You've got to keep metrics. You've got to go. These. Exactly. And so when we look at all of these different areas and you weight them differently and you start getting this data, you start getting really good information. And what does good information do? It allows you good direction on action. And when you have good direction on action, you can actually make good change and lasting change. So that's where I'm just like, we've got to get to a place where we can measure these things. So the next step is figure out a way to do what I'm saying. Okay. And whether it's using our stuff, and if you're curious on how to do that, hit us up. Okay. We'll work with you to get something in place. But it could be as simple as, hey, we're just going to score as managers, all these people, then we're going to have the peers score. And we tend to not make this anonymous. This is an area that like, hey, as you score, I'm going to want to follow up on why'd you score a 4 here? Like, we need to have that conversation because I don't want this to affect this person without good data. And good data is the most important part. So I think creating good metrics, creating good techniques, and then taking this and developing how do you want to hire the right people to make sure that they're already hitting these right things. Like we've adapted even our interview questions to accommodate this mentality. How do we identify accountable for action? How do we identify reliability? How do we identify? And you got to ask the right question. You can't be like, hey, you reliable? Yes. That must be a 10. Okay. Generally accountable for actions, huh? Okay, cool. We got a tenor here, guys. Like, that's not what we do. You got to ask good questions, but you got to have good data before you can ask good questions.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate a couple points here before we wrap up, that these areas that define an A player are also the areas that make up a great culture. Isn't that weird? Yeah. How it plays out. Like, if you fill your roster with people that have these 10 qualities, then all of a sudden you have a culture that has these 10 qualities. And no one would look at these 10 qualities and be like, nah, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to see your workplace and organization be one of a good culture and scalability, like, these are the things that you look for in your culture as a whole. So why not look at it as in the individuals as well? And I also want to reiterate what Blake said. Like, we can help you implement this with your team. If you reach out to us, go to theculturebase.com and click on our calendar. We'd love to chat with you about that. We can help implement this A-Player system into your organization pretty smoothly. We'd love to chat with you about that. I want to recap one more time the 10 areas that make up an A-player for our note takers out there like me, the nerds in the back: accountability for action, reliability, quality of work, taking initiative, problem-solving ability, adaptability and flexibility. A lot of abilities here. Collaboration and teamwork, continuous improvement, communication skills, and leadership. That's what makes up an A-player. And I cannot wait to dive into this topic further with y'all in some upcoming episodes where we're going to break down some of these things for sure. But next episode, we're going to be back talking about the Leaders Toolkit, essential resources for your cultural leadership. Hey, give me the tools. Enough yapping them already, right? Just tell me what tools do I need to put in my tool belt. So we're going to do that with you next time on the Culture Base Podcast. Have a great week.